Awesemo, here we go. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Kyle Dvorchak as we get ready for NFL Live Before Lock. We've had nonstop shows today, 4 hours of NFL this morning. You guys just got done with an hour of NBA Live Before Lock with T. McBee and Josh Engelman. Now you get us for an hour. We're like a regular broadcast network, Kyle.
I had no clue what they were on for. I was like, I didn't think we had a live before lock, and because I don't follow NBA in the slightest. And I will say, I've used the Awesemo projections, and I made a tiny bit of money off the tickets I've scored for whatever reason DK and FanDuel give them away. So as someone who literally couldn't name you more than 10 players, I think our projections are at least doing all right.
Excellent. Well, that's good to know. I got to do my first show last night. Worked out well. I do the old Fred Van Elite fan club. I took third in it. That's right, baby. Played Fred Van Vliet. It worked out for me. It doesn't always work out when you play Fred Van Vliet, but that's where we're at. So we've got, this is going to be an interesting lineup construct. The players in this game are so top heavy. There's not really any desirable value, I guess is what we'll call that, or obvious value, but that's fine because we all have the same hand here. And I think fortune favors the bold. That's what I'm looking for. We'll leave it up to fate to decide. I'm trying to pop out this silly little chat here so I can put it on my other screen. There we go. Hi, YouTube friends. But yeah, we've got some fun going on here. And Butthole Jenkins, as always, keeping us on track. He says, cut the crap. Let's go with the best play on the slate. We've got a lot of best plays on this slate, but I think it's going to be Davante Adams. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that and more. We've got a lot going on here. We, of course, are sponsored by No House Advantage. We'll talk a little bit about them. The key over there, it's player prop betting. Fantasy sports built around player props. And if you use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up, they will match you up to $20 with your first deposit. Refer a friend, get another $5 when they sign up. That is No House Advantage. We'll talk in detail a little bit more about them later. Please do hit that like button. Thank you, guys. We had a world record, almost 1,500 likes today. We had 4,500 concurrent viewers on our NFL shows. That is right around the all-time high for NFL and definitely for the last couple months. So thank you very much. We couldn't do that without you, but hit that subscribe button. We're on our way to 50K. When we hit that, I'm sure we'll be giving away some nice swag. So help us get there. And then finally, the free tool for tonight is the Awesemo NFL DFS rankings. They're not specifically for the Showdown, but hey, it'll work because we've got player grades and rankings for the players in that game as well. So you can look at that. And then finally, no, I don't think we have a pin tweet tonight. Inactives. Jordan Love, no surprise there. A couple defensive players for Green Bay. Jay Sternberger, the tight end, and then Jamal Williams is out. We were expecting this. He was doubtful with a quad injury. I believe it was quad injury for most of the week. So this is no surprise. We'll talk about that. Doesn't really open up any screaming value other than it makes Davante Adams that much better if possible. Aaron Jones as well. But this news was out before the slate pricing came out. So the sites did a pretty good job of handling that. If we go over here and look at let's see, the other side, we've got Cineris Perry is inactive. We've got Deonta Foreman inactive. No surprise there. And then a couple defensive players for Tennessee. So nothing to really move us here. But before we go in, I want to say you got 2 more days to use the promo code Caruso. That gets you the NBA content for a full week. Go to the NBA page on the join page, choose 1 week, and use the promo code Caruso. That will get you $1. That expires on the 29th. All right, Kyle, what do we want to do here? Let's go with the visiting team. It is December, which of course is Derrick Henry's month. He has been, phenomenal as always. You've got Ryan Tannehill sneaking some touchdowns away from Henry. And then you've got Henry's 2,000-yard rushing season. It may not get there. He needs 321 yards. He really needed to put up about 170 last week. Fell a little bit short. Asking for someone to go back-to-back 160 is a tall task there. So we'll have to see what's going on with that. And then we've got some receivers that have been phenomenal. Corey Davis, A.J. Brown. I'm pointing all this out because that's kind of the core 4 here for the Tennessee side. This is where the vast majority of their offense is concentrated, with the exception of random touchdowns going to all of the tight ends. Break this one down for us. We'll start off with Tannehill. I said he's a fringe top 20 quarterback for the full week. However, he is only 3 fantasy points out of being in the top 10. That's how tight quarterback rankings tend to be. The only quarterback to top 300 yards on Green Bay this year is Deshaun Watson. But what you do need to know is that Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Nick Mullins, and Phillip Rivers all got 280. So I'm saying here is this is a defense that can be passed on. Their touchdown, their sack rate has gone down a little bit. Their DVOA has gone down a little bit, and we can target them here. What do you want to do? Start off with Tannehill and then take us on into Dehember.
Yeah, I mean, Tannehill makes, every quarterback, like literally any quarterback, Ryan Finley, Daniel Jones, any quarterback with a pulse, and even one who's like got a very fleeting pulse, at least has to be considered for Showdown. I think there are no scenarios in which you could really write off a quarterback entirely, but Tannehill does come in on the wrong side of not being Aaron Rodgers because, he's not Aaron Rodgers and his team doesn't want to utilize him, whereas Aaron Rodgers' team would prefer to utilize him and one receiver specifically. So if you're looking at which quarterback is less desirable because Aaron Rodgers is only 1,000 more, like that 1,000 is definitely worth spending up to get to Rodgers. I think Tannehill is fine. He could be, some sort of negative leverage off of Derrick Henry. But the interesting thing is, for the most part, like this offense is sort of all correlated together. And you don't think of this as an offense that would be like that because they are so run heavy. You would think, well, whenever they get the offense going, that means they get Derrick Henry going. And the opposite is true for Ryan Tannehill. Not necessarily true. I think they're just an offense that is so much built so on efficiency where they just need these big plays. They need Henry to chunk off 20 to get him in the red zone and then some play action to Jeff Swaim to score a touchdown. That they sort of feed off of each other. So I think in an individual game, there is some, negative correlation we had, but it may not be as much as we generally think. For that reason, I think the Packers overall in our top stacks tool kind of has this as true as well. The Packers just have more like, top scoring equity. So I'm going to be focusing on building Packers heavy lineups and just hoping that, if one of the offensive members falls, they kind of all fall from the Tennessee side. But I think there's an argument to go the opposite direction. I think this is maybe just a slate that I feel more comfortable, and I typically am very comfortable with this anyways, but just going heavy team stacks like 5-1s, 4-2s on either side. For me, that's the Packers, but I think there's equally as good of an argument just because of the variance inherent in a single NFL slate to go with the Titans as well. I would just say maybe this is a slate where like the middle of the road 3-3s are even less viable. And I generally think they're kind of dupe heavy and hard to predict anyways, because if you run a 5-1, you've literally just cut down the possible combinations of options. Like Alex talks about this on our Thursday shows, you just mathematically have less ways to create 5-1. So if you are correct that one team goes off and you need 5 of them, you're more likely to get it right. It's sort of just like general stacking in that way. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I am fading the Tennessee offense, but it's not because I think they're a bad play. It's because I think they're all sort of correlated together and I want to play the better team.
And that's where it's going to get interesting as we continue to break this down. They all look good, but then when you start laying it out, it's Packer, it's another Packer, it's another Packer. And then you got to kind of force a couple Tennessee guys in there. And then all of a sudden you're at the bottom of your top 10 and you've listed every good player and there's no value. That's the moral of the story here when you're looking on both sides. If we look at Henry here, 3 different running backs have topped 100 yards against the Packers. Henry has topped 100 yards 9 times himself. He has at least 133 rushing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. And in those 5 games, he had 733 rushing yards. That would place, I think I looked it up. I want to say it was like 14th on the season or something like that. Just those 5 games. After Henry, we don't really know what's going to happen. He's not going to get every carry. They don't want to completely burn him out. Last week, it was kind of a blowout there. So it was Darrington Evans who had 13 snaps. He has 26 snaps on the season. He had 13 in the last game. He ended up with 8 carries and 2 targets. The week before that, it was Jeremy McNichols who got 11 carries on 22 snaps. Though he only gained 9 yards, he caught his 1 target for 5. But these guys are sort of afterthoughts. As we get into the receivers, Corey Davis and A.J. Brown have a combined 38% target share. They're getting just the vast majority of this work. Brown has 6 100-yard games. Davis has 5. Brown has scored in 9 of his last 11 games. That's pretty cool. He gets just constant touchdowns. That's what's keeping him amongst the leaders in the fantasy clubhouse. And then Davis has touchdowns in 2 of his last 3. So they're both capable of getting this. We're kind of seeing, Corey Davis, maybe he's putting it all together this year. He's been a fantasy darling for a long time and disappointed us. And then all of a sudden it looked like AJ Brown was just surpassing him. They've both been outstanding, but they're getting by on efficiency this year. And that's something that can be a little bit scary. We expect there to be fireworks in this game, but anything can happen. I mean, last night I got my ass kicked because I went heavy on Tua Tagovailoa and he got benched. So, and Thursday night I got my clock clean because I was heavy on Derek Carr and he got hurt. So anything can happen in these games, but this is something that I find interesting. When we get to the tight ends, I was kind of hoping Johnny Smith might be inactive. He was dealing with the knee issue. Or it could have been a veteran day off. Nobody seemed to be particularly worried about it, but he was popped up on the injury report on Thursday, but he's active. So I bring this up because Michael Pruitt is 400 on DK. But now we've got Pruitt, Ferkser, Smith, and Jeff Swain. Not very exciting. I mean, you're literally looking for a lottery ticket here. How are you breaking down their pass catchers? Is there anybody really besides Davis, Brown, and probably Smith that you can find for us? That pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, please.
You can play Jeff Swain. You could go for it. He got a handful of targets a few weeks ago. I think it was like 1 last week. They run a lot of 2 tight end, even a smattering of 3 tight end, I believe, these like jumbo sets. So it's possible. And especially it's not like their 2 tight end sets are we play the first tight end and we play the second tight end. 2 tight end sets can also be we play the second and third or the first and third. So like if you want to go deep, you could play Jeff Swain. I really just think the best value on this team could be Corey Davis. I mean, in the games they've played together this year, AJ Brown and Corey Davis has a 3% greater air yard share and a 1% less target share. They are getting almost identical volume, a very tiny edge in targets for AJ Brown and a slight edge in air yards for Corey Davis. So I don't think there's really a preference for me between these two. But then you look at the pricing and you save money by going to Corey Davis. This is a slate where we're going to need to save money. And then you look at the ownership and you also save on ownership by going to Corey Davis. So for me, I think the best thing I can give you in terms of value is that I won't be playing a ton of AJ Brown because I think his volume is very similar to Corey Davis. He has been lights out efficient. I think he's such an awesome player, but I don't know. I think a lot of players are awesome players. That doesn't always mean they produce fantasy points. I'm looking at our projections, which are going to be more accurate than my thoughts on him as a player. And I'm seeing that, yeah, he's going to score on average more points than someone like Corey Davis. But then I see the volume and I think, well, yeah, on average, he'll score more points, but adjust for his price and his ownership. And I think Corey Davis, probably the best value. Maybe you could simply argue that paying down is the best quote value. So someone like Ferks or someone like Jonnu Smith could be the way to go. I think all of this is just to say that I'm generally not super high on the high efficiency guys like someone like AJ Brown, when we know that they're so fragile. Like he needs that long touchdown. And is he really likely to get, is he more likely to get it than your average receiver? Absolutely. He is more likely to score a long touchdown than most receivers. But if he doesn't get that, you draw that. So I'm more likely to go with, an Anthony Ferks or Corey Davis. I think Jonnu Smith and AJ Brown at their respective prices are kind of in that second or third tier of the Titans guys that I'm really looking to target.
That's actually a really good point there with Corey Davis. And I've ultimately decided that he's going to kind of be my guy. I'm doing the cash game lineup there. If we can get up to, let's get up to 150 likes and I'll drop 10 cash game lineups out there on DK for us. I did. Too bad I wasn't on the show last night. You guys would have swept me. The night before I swept everybody. And then I think the last one we did was Thursday and I got swept. So there seems to be a trend here. It's kind of an all or nothing situation in these, but hey, when you have Derek Carr and when you have Tua Tagovailoa, that tends to happen. The defenses here, I don't think are really in play on either side. The two starting quarterbacks have combined for 9 interceptions this season. That's not very much. The Packers don't generate very many turnovers. And with the Tennessee more willing to run the ball, there are less opportunities for sacks. So it just doesn't really feel like there's going to be a good situation for us. Anything can happen, but this feels like you're hoping for a defensive touchdown. Now, we have seen in high-scoring games where people are having to air it out a lot. There is some tends to be some of those opportunities. this just doesn't quite feel like one for me. So I'm not overly excited about them. Moving on to Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Let's see. So I said the key thing on this is both of our teams are going against the respective defense's weakness. So Green Bay, not the best at rush defense. That's what Tennessee wants to do. Tennessee, third worst passing DVOA, allowing the fourth most yards per game. It's Aaron Rodgers has been absolutely phenomenal. 40 touchdowns against 4 interceptions. That's an amazing ratio. 10-1 touchdowns to interceptions. That's just wild. He has 3 rushing touchdowns. I was thinking he was going to be my number one play. I think it's really Davante Adams, even on DraftKings. On FanDuel. I think the next player is probably Aaron Jones on both sides, and then I come in with Rodgers. Do an explanation here of what happens if Rodgers has a good game, but he has only eyes for one particular receiver.
That has been, other than kind of some, I won't say fluky because he throws a lot of touchdowns, other than some touchdowns and long plays going to other players, that's always been the case, at least this season and last season and maybe the season before that, basically since Davante Adams broke out, is that Aaron Rodgers is great and it mostly funnels to one player, and that's been Davante Adams. And this season has been more so than, any other season in his career, honestly. This even feels like it's better than the peak Jordy Nelson days, where he just has such an immense target share and air yard share dedicated to one player. And he's also like their red zone. Like, he's essentially a goal line back. They'll be on the 1 yard line and say like, no, we're not going to try and run this in. We're not going to sneak it. Let's just throw jump balls to Davante Adams. And he comes down with them all the time. So he has such an interesting role in that he just plays every facet of the game. He's short, he's intermediate, he's deep, he's red zone. He can be used as like, quote, an extension of the run game in the way that like guys who are just like Michael Thomas is sort of like this, where if you're struggling to run the football, just guarantee yourself 8 yards on slants and stuff. So I think he's probably the best receiver right now. And because Rodgers obviously recognizes that, most times, I don't think this is always true, but most times when we see Rodgers go for 303 touchdowns, what do we think that ends up being for Davante Adams? Over 108 touchdown, almost for sure. I think your one out is long touchdowns from Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Alan Lazard, and just touchdowns in general from Robert Tonyan, which both of those groups of guys, both of the secondary receivers and Robert Tonyan are capable of that, but it just seems so few and far between that we actually see a game. Like, you need at least a double touchdown game from one of them to really crowd out Davante Adams. I think because Davante Adams has such an incredible target share, air yard share, red zone opportunities, all these things, I am more likely to play a full Packers onslaught than I am to really ever fade Davante Adams and go with, what if Robert Tonyan catches 3 touchdowns? Then Davante Adams doesn't get there. I'm more likely to bet on Rodgers throwing 4 or 5 and Adams getting 1, Tonyan getting 1, and, Aaron Jones getting 1 or whatever, not Jamal Williams, someone like Alan Lazard or whatever, Mercedes Lewis, I don't care. I'd much rather going a full onslaught of Green Bay than trying to pick out the night that Davante Adams isn't Davante Adams.
Yeah, and it's, we say this because we, like, Josh had a good point on the talking about the boom bust top stacks tool for today. It was all over Kansas City. They were 40% chance of being the top stack. That also means there was a 60% chance they weren't going to be the top stack. We saw one of those kind of outlier games. It wasn't what we expected. They got the win. That's what they really want. Who knew both those teams were going to sort of play defense and just be content to watch the clock run. So, weird stuff happens. You got to prepare for it. That's why we like to make a lot of different lineups. It's like you can't cover all your bases, but you have to take certain, it all depends on what you do against what the field is doing. Everything's about leverage and ownership in football, especially in showdown slates, and incredibly so in basketball. So again, reminder, if you guys haven't jumped in on that basketball one, promo code Caruso gets you 1 week of all NBA access for $1. All right. Aaron Jones. We haven't seen a lot from him lately, but we know he's going to get theoretically all of the workload. Wait a second. Shouldn't somebody else get some carries? Well, How about a rookie? How about a rookie second-round draft pick? A.J. Dillon, he must be awesome. They used a second-round pick, and they could have picked a bunch of different players at that spot. Oh, he's only played in 7 games, 24 yards, 115 carries. Is he active in the passing game, Kyle? No.
No, I think he caught six college passes or something hilarious.
He has a 100% catch rate on his one target for 16 yards. Okay, there is no Jamal Williams. Aaron Jones is probably not going to get every single carry. On the plays where he's not getting carries, are those going to be passes, or is there the opportunity for A.J. Dillon to get 5, 6, 7 carries? What do you think a Dillon stat line is?
I don't know, 6 or 7 carries. It's hard to even see
22 yards and no touchdown.
Yeah. If he gets that touchdown, he'll be like the slate breaker. I do think the team has often, not always, but often seemingly been hesitant, even on Aaron Jones' best performances, to give him the entirety of the work. But I do think it makes most sense to, like, on the 50-yard line, 2nd and 2. That's when you're giving A.J. Dillon work, not, these nice, juicy third down dump offs or these designed screens. It would be surprising. I mean, he's like a big-bodied back. He's super athletic, so maybe they use him on goal line packages. But are you going to trust this guy who you literally make healthy scratching like a regular habit? I don't know. It doesn't seem awfully likely. I think he's a fine value, but this looks like a great night for Aaron Jones, which is one of the many reasons I'm hesitant to play a ton of Titans, is because now we have Davante Adams is Davante Adams. I don't need to explain his whole thing of scoring all of the fantasy points to you. Aaron Rodgers putting up MVP numbers. And now we could potentially have a lot of the backfield carries and specifically the backfield targets. It seems like if anything's going to happen to Jamal Williams' role, it would be that all of that receiving work goes to Aaron Jones. And yeah, sure, his rushing work is probably split between Dillon and Jones. But now we have that consolidating on another Packers player. I think just another reason that I'm really interested in playing the favored Packers in this spot as opposed to the underdog and overpriced, in my opinion. I mean, based on our projections, relatively overpriced Titans.
All right, so we're getting a question. Do you think Jaire Alexander will be shadowing Davante Adams? I don't think it matters. This is Davante Adams, who's got a Hall of Fame quarterback. He is one of the arguably top 5 right now receivers in the league. Adams, Tyreek Hill are the first 2 that come to mind for me. Keenan Allen when healthy, but it's a pretty short list when you're saying who is the best. I find it hard for Adams to be stopped by anybody. The other wild card is as many short touchdowns as he's gotten in the red zone is crazy as well.
Well, you said Davante Adams. I assume the question in chat was about A.J. Brown. Isn't Davante Adams Packers corner?
Oh, Jaire Alexander. Sorry. While I was reading it here, I'm sorry. Yeah. You're right.
I mean, I don't really care about cornerback matchups anyways.
That was kind of, I'm sorry, that should have said that, but yes, thank you. My knowledge of defensive backs not the best because they
that's like one of the 6 defensive backs you could have named that I actually was able to know. Otherwise, the thing is, I don't know defensive backs because I literally I think it matters. I don't think we know how to figure out how it matters yet. I think in a year or 2, maybe even longer, but I think at some point we actually will have people who are smart enough to model defense or, defense first position or more specifically cornerback versus wide receiver matchups and figure out where it matters. But at this point, no one has shown anything that really shows any real predictability of how a single cornerback can affect a wide receiver matchup for a number of reasons. If you're getting a cornerback who's playing zone, that means they're not necessarily lining up and just covering one receiver. And if they play man, then you can still have 2 receivers lined up on one side and then just have one rub route. And then you're not getting that cornerback for a split second actually matched up. He's not actually, you can scheme him off of the player essentially. And then not every cornerback, even if they are running man and they're getting one-on-one, is not having safety help over the top. There are just so many factors with it. And even if we could control for all of those things, it's just hard because losing, the cornerback loses his footing on one single play. He can still be the best corner in that game and he can hold A.J. Brown, for instance. Jaire could hold A.J. Brown for every single play but 2. And those could be the 2 long A.J. Brown touchdowns. So there's so much variance. There's so many variables that it is just literally we don't, I haven't seen anyone produce any work that shows it really has any impact, like that we can predict at least in any individual game. So that's why that's why I can name you like 6 corners. It's because it's not the best use of our time. I think the best use of our time is figuring out how to leverage the projections. Like you said, think about the ownership, removing duplicated lineups. There are 10, 20, 30 better ways to use our time and make ourselves sharper at DFS than figuring out how Jair Alexander matches up against AJ Brown or whatever.
Right. And then just kind of, and we have got time. We've got 34 minutes. So one other thing to think about when you're what Kyle was saying. So remember, we used to have the shutdown cornerbacks. So with Joe Hayden, Revis Island, stuff like that. Richard Sherman, they don't want to throw to his side of the ball. Well, then sometimes you don't know how good the corner really is because they're not going to him. And some of those really good guys carry their reputation for an extra season or two. Josh Norman comes to mind when I think about that. The other thing we want to think about is like Kyle said, what are some of the better metrics that we can kind of look at? Fantasy points per route. Sort of helps you a little bit. That's where we're trying to, air yards came into play previously. Average depth of target was a big thing for a while. You can take some of those and divide it by situational numbers to come up with your own metrics, et cetera. But there's no good way to do it because, as Kyle said, anything can be fluky on a single play. Who was it last week that had the touchdown, but then the sun got in his eyes or whatever and dropped an easy one? I mean,
is that Akins?
Yes.
One that banged off his shoulder.
Yeah, the Titans tight end. They've got like 8 tight ends, but yes, it was Jordan Akins. But it's one of those things where it's hard to tell from that. But you're right. Should we be cognizant? Yes. What happens with it? I don't know. All right. After Davante Adams, we really only have Allen Lazard and MVS. It's an incredibly narrow distribution of targets here. So putting this in perspective, Davante Adams has missed 2.5 games. He is second in the league with 14 touchdowns. He's 5th in receptions. He leads the league with 98.8 receiving yards per game. He's 5th in receptions, and he leads the league with 10.9 targets per game. Absolutely phenomenal. The Titans have allowed a dozen different wide receivers and tight ends to get 80-plus yards. This is a good spot for Davante Adams. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Lazard, let's see, they each play on about 2/3 of the plays. Other receivers in the last 3 weeks have combined for 12.3 snaps. That's not very many. So they're running 2 tight end sets, and Davante Adams never leaves the field. At tight end, we have Robert Tonyan. He has 10 touchdowns. That's phenomenal. He's going to need to get number 11 for where his price is at this point. Mercedes Lewis, on average, has been within 5 snaps of Tonyan every game. However, that was in the last 3 weeks. But the targets, 13 to Tonyan, 2 to Mercedes Lewis. Your touchdown hunting, or if you're going with the Mercedes Lewis, who's one of the guys we'll talk about for DK, that is under $1,000. It's everything else you're getting. That's what you have to start counting, not what he's going to do. You hope for 2 targets. Maybe he'll catch one of them. That's the expectations you have to have coming into this. And then I said for defense, again, Tennessee has only allowed 21 sacks, and they have only had 5 interceptions. So this is not a game for defenses. So kind of on the rankings here, and then we'll have plenty of time here for questions. We'll talk a little bit about no house advantage and prop wagers, etc. So I kind of rank this out for both sides. This is if I'm building, 1 to 3 lineups, Davante Adams is number 1. I want him as the captain MVP. Aaron Jones has a ton of upside, but is he the first option in the offense? It's scary to say that a wide receiver is probably the first option in the offense. This is one of these situations where it is. I've got Rodgers at 3rd, and then my note says, I didn't think I would be going with 3 Packers first because I like all the Tennessee players. We know where the offense is going and it's consolidated, but when you start looking at it, it gets a little harder. I said Derrick Henry next. And a lot of that is kind of more on the FanDuel side, but he gets enough of a workload here. It wouldn't be a shock for him to get 25 or 30 carries. On DraftKings, while he's not catching passes, if he gets that 100-yard bonus, he may get 2 or 3 targets today, may get 1 or 2 catches. But if he gets 2 touchdowns, we need him to. But all of a sudden, he's in a good spot. I like Corey Davis for the discount and for the security. like you mentioned. Then I'm on Tannehill, and then I'm on A.J. Brown. I have no cheap guys here. That's the problem. You can't play all of these guys. Then I put in the kickers. I didn't know what to do with the kickers today. It's a higher scoring game, probably. I'm not a fan of either kicker. They're both almost my age, I would think. I don't know what to do with them. So I'm not that excited by them. And on DK, I think they're both like 4,000 and 4,200. Usually we're getting kickers like 38. That couple $100 makes a difference. After this, now we're just doing some touchdown hunting. Maybe you go with a Lazard because you can't get everybody at the top of the list. You forego, I keep wanting to say Brett Favre tonight. Perhaps you forego Aaron Rodgers and you go with Lazard, just so you're trying to encompass all of those touchdowns. And then our mid values. None of these guys stand out. MVS, Tanyan, Michael Pruitt, Ferkser, not exciting. And now we're down to AJ Dillon, Mercedes Lewis, Darrington Evans. I don't know. Does he get 3 carries? Maybe. What are we doing here at the bottom? So how are you facilitating your lineup constructions?
Yeah, so I think the easiest thing is to probably, I think it's going to be really different. I think it's going to be easy for people to go with like 3 or so of the studs and then go down to like Dylan Ferkser, even Mercedes Lewis is sort of in play. So is Darrington Evans to an extent. I think we're going to see a lot of that construction. I think it's really interesting to go with, like, if you run a Packers onslaught, go Rodgers, Adams, and then like fade Aaron Jones and say Robert Tonyan scores a touchdown or multiple touchdowns. Marquez Valdez-Scantling breaks off 2 long ones. Because I think people are going to gravitate towards playing the obvious plays. And I think there are enough options with someone who, Ferkser, I think is a fine enough value. And I think people have seen him score on Showdown enough that they're probably willing to go to him at 1,600. So I think people are going to generally gravitate towards a stars and scrubs approach. And I think if you just roll with like a balanced approach in large field tournaments, in addition to a ton of other things, playing guys who are, correlated together, playing things that are going to build unique lineups. But I think that is one of the easiest ways to start off with a lineup that is going to be leveraged against the field, is simply fading multiple of the expensive guys. Not all of my lineups will be like this, but I do think if you're firing off, a single bullet into the, whatever the biggest contest is, I think the highest DV lineups are probably going to be ones that have, Rodgers, Adams, and maybe like a Corey Davis. And that's all of the studs they have, as opposed to going with what I think will be the chalkier build of getting, we'll call it that 4th stud in essentially.
I hate when you run a crunch and then it doesn't work. Oops. All right. Let's talk a little No House Advantage. So No House Advantage is a prop wagering or betting site, but the twist is you're not going against the house. So that means you're not limited on the props. The props are not moving around all the time. You're getting them at a static choice. And then what they do is they put out a variety of these questions for you. And then from there, you choose, depending on the format, slate, size, somewhere between 5 and 7 of the questions. They'll have between 20 and 40 questions that you pick. And then you assign them a confidence rating based upon whether you think said prop will be reached, or if the team or if the player will fail. Sounds a little complicated? No, not really. I'm going to drop into our Slack chat here the link to our free projections for their site. And they're not updated for right now. Alex, too many sports going on right now. In any event, and I can't access it because I'm in Virginia, but in any event, how it works is you would look at something like Aaron Rodgers. I do know that the over-under on him on some of the sites right now for passing yards is 300, right? Well, I can go look at the Awesemo projections for Aaron Rodgers, and I see that we're coming in at 283.5 for passing yards. There are a lot of ways someone can fail getting to 300 yards. Perhaps we get Aaron Jones breaks off a couple long runs, or this is against Tennessee, who would like to see the clock moving, because the more the clock's moving, that's the less plays that Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams are going to get. So there are many ways that getting to 300 yards can fail. We see eye-popping numbers every week. Someone's always getting like yesterday, Tom Brady with like 500 yards in the first half or whatever insane number it was. Remember when we thought Tom Brady was dusty like 4 weeks ago? Yeah, weirdness can happen. And when it works, it's a passing league and people can really rack up the yards. But we tend to forget how many just not great games are out there amongst all 32 starting quarterbacks each week. So just want to put that one out there. But if you sign up over there, use the promo code Awesemo, they will match you with your first deposit up to $20. All right, let's go over here to ask some questions. What does fade mean? That's a good question. So fade, so here's how it's used incorrectly. It really means you're not playing the person. That's a full fade. If it was somebody you're not going to play anyway, like tonight I'm fading Kari Blasingame. Okay, I wasn't going to play him. The field's not going to play him. Are you really fading him? So the intent of this is to mean you're going to come in at or less than the field of whatever that arbitrary number is. And that's where we use the ownership projections and other things. So if you were fading Davante Adams, when I hear it, I would think, well, that means you're not going to play Davante Adams. What most people mean is if he's going to be on 70% of the teams, they're only going to play him on 40 or 30% if they're a mass multi-entry type person. So that's what fade means. The other one that always blows my mind, I hate, is cash games. Cash games. Well, I have to pay for all of them. Aren't they all cash games? That means head-to-heads, 50-50s, three-mans, maybe triple-ups. It's where at least a third, if not more, of the field is going to be paid out. That is kind of a cash game. What you want there is higher floor. You're not as worried about the ceiling. You're just hoping to beat just to the minimum to get over that cash line from that standpoint. All right. Do I think that this slate... Okay, here we go. Do you think that on this slate, 3 gadget plays with Tavon Austin is reasonable with Williams out? I will be surprised if Tavon Austin does anything but return kicks tonight.
Yep, I agree.
It's a good question. No stone unturned. Yeah.
No, three gadget plays seems like a lot.
I would say the over-under on him running 3.5 routes.
Yeah, 3.5 routes is probably the correct answer. Like, he factors in very, very sparingly, a handful of offensive snaps, let alone plays that are actually designed for him. I don't know if any of those plays are designed for him. Maybe one is. So, no, I mean, yeah, well, no stone unturned, but we turned this one and was like, no, there's nothing under here. At least I don't have.
It's a good question to ask, though. We're looking for those super duper cheapies. So we'll have to see. I don't know why my stupid crunches aren't running. What have I done? I've probably I need to relax my player rules. All right. Am I setting up any rules for Showdown? I have not built my Showdown lineups yet, but I will probably have a couple rules. Rule 1 will play as much Davante Adams as I can. Rule 2 will be see Rule 1. That's where I'm landing on this game tonight. It could be a go big or a go home situation. We've run into this. This may not be the most timely example, or is it? We've run into this on at least 3 Showdown slates with Alvin Kamara, and you just needed to play him in the captain spot. Or MVP spot. You needed to. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but that is the correct play when you have somebody that has that kind of upside and is going to be that concentrated. That's how I feel tonight about Davante Adams. I feel strongly enough about Davante Adams that I basically am playing him in 90% of my Friday through Monday and my Sunday through Monday contests. I just think it's a really good spot. Could I go down in flames? You betcha. We'll find out. It just happened with Derek Carr 10 days ago. So let's talk a little bit about the 4-2s and 5-1s again. And chat, if we get up, where are we on the likes here? Get us up to 170, and I'll put 10 lineups in for the head-to-heads. And you guys know I actually do have my cash lineup built, but go ahead and get us up to 170, and we'll drop that in there for you guys. We'll have some fun. Talk to me about your unbalanced onslaughts.
Yeah, so one, I just generally think that it is a build that the field is less willing to go to, despite the fact that it hits at a pretty decent clip. I'm not going to say like it's an every week thing. I literally think the math is that it hits more often than people are willing to play it, and that's why I am willing to go to it. And I do think tonight makes maybe more sense than even most nights, but I'm still fine doing it, just because, like I said, I think the Titans offense, even though we think of them as, they're losing and they throw a lot, and that's good for the passing weapons, or they're winning and they run a lot, and that's good for Derrick Henry. Like, I know Derrick Henry and AJ Brown are positively correlated in their fantasy output, and I wouldn't be surprised if like Ryan Tannehill and them are all correlated, just because, like I said, they're a team that thrives on explosive plays. If they're all making, like, I think it's an all or nothing bet where the offense makes their explosive plays, they make multiple trips to the red zone. Henry goes over 100, Brown scores, Jonnu Smith scores, Ryan Tannehill puts up a rushing touchdown. Like, these things all end up being a little more correlated than other teams because they almost play like a high variance style of football where they take deep shots and they run a lot of play action. If these things aren't working, the entire offense, it sinks. So I think it makes sense for probably Tennessee in general, but I also just think that the Packers have a ton of firepower that can get spread out. I think for Tennessee on any showdown slate, almost, I think they're one that makes sense to roll with a lot of Titans or not many Titans because they have the potential to really flop as an offense or really get there as an offense. And like I said earlier, you mathematically just reduce the amount of permutations that are possible when you run a 5-1. And like, I think it's literally the same math as like why the largest volume shape is a square. It's just like 3 times 3 is going to give you more options than 5 times 1. I think is literally the math to it.
Okay, that was something I did not expect to be a mind bender tonight that we're going to have. I do not know what to do with this particular information.
Well, I can't figure out why I continually got bullied in high school. Like, nothing about the things I just said and the way I thought about football. Like, I tell my friends, like, guys, you got to think football like it's a square.
I will say this is the collection of people we have now at Awesemo that comes in with so different ways of looking at this, and this is how we're going to be staying ahead of the curve. It's not snowing in this game, is it?
Oh yeah, it's snowing pretty good, and I was looking at the total. The total has dropped, but it started dropping as of like yesterday. Oh god, this isn't military time. I can't read it. It was like yesterday afternoon or something, and the total is still at 52. Which like I know like the times where we really get blizzards, and I guess this was as of an hour or so ago, so maybe it's stopped since then. The times where we really get those like crazy blizzards, the total will plummet 15 or more points, and it's come down 3.5. So I think there is maybe some sharp money coming in on a slight under, but it's not anything crazy. 52 would still have been the second highest total on the main slate, third or fourth highest on the entire week, third highest I think on the week, maybe even second. So I'm not too concerned with it because Vegas isn't concerned. Like, there would be tons of money coming in if there were 10 inches on the ground and, low visibility and high wind. And there's a little bit of money coming in on the under, and it's in the past day or two, but it's nothing egregious. I think we're in line for a mostly normal game. Maybe a slight uptick in rushing. I'm sure Tennessee would love that. But yeah. I can't imagine we get some, Vegas would be telling us if we were going to get some crazy blizzard game. We're going to get a little bit of weather, but I don't think it's anything to adjust the protection too much with.
Yeah, so there's a fun, they're showing, if you go follow everyone's favorite weatherman on Twitter, DFS weatherman, we'll say his name. I'm friends with him, Kevin Roth. He says, the snow forecast is looking pretty good. It's tapering off in the second half. Right now, winds are at 14 miles an hour. And then he's retweeted Sunday Night Football that has Titans player Ben Jones walking out onto the field barefoot. Now, they're expecting a total of 2 to 3 inches potentially throughout the game, but they will have the field cleared. So it's going to be cold, obviously. Both teams lean towards the run just a little bit, but we know that Devontae Adams still excels in all facets of the passing game. Deep, short, whatever he needs to do, he can do. And that Aaron Rodgers, these guys have played in Green Bay for a long time. This is not their first snow game. So I'm not as worried about this. And then there is also the old football axiom of if the defense should be at the disadvantage because they don't know where the offense is trying to go, meaning from their footing standpoint. So that, like we were saying with coverage corners, any weirdness can happen. They're saying they saw the poop look on my face when I was there. Every time I hear, there's snow, I think back to that one, was it like Philly and Detroit, and it was Calvin Johnson. It was like 6 years ago, and they cut to the game and there was literally a foot of snow and the field was just an absolute disaster. There's another funny thing. This was also a live finals and people didn't realize that there was snow. So until they got down to watch the finals, back when everybody could get together, and they were looking at the big screens and they're just like, oh my God, because like over a third to half the field played Calvin Johnson that week, and what should have been an amazing matchup, and it was a disaster. So that's where I get worried. What I'm looking at and seeing here, it's one game, everybody's playing into it. Do I feel a little worse about my Davante Adams love? A little bit, but maybe he just racks up more short yardage passes.
Yeah.
So. All right, 14 minutes. I should probably build some lineups. Let's upload some projections here. Which player are you terrified of not having enough of? Ooh, and I will drop. I'm going to drop by the time you guys hear this. Oh, we're at 159 likes. Get us up to 170. We'll put those games in there. Come on, it'll be fun. I want to play you guys, so hit that like button. Just need 11 more. Which players are you terrified of not having enough of?
I mean, I don't have much, if any, I've checked Derrick Henry at captain. That is a mainstay of my DFS game, is that I don't play a lot of Derrick Henry when he's going to be popular, and on Showdown, he'll be pretty popular. I actually do have a decent amount of him in the flex. I'll probably be, I have to check, I'll probably be with the field on Henry at the flex, but I'm simply thinking that, and our top stacks tool indicates this as well, that Davante Adams is just the cream of the crop. Like, he is easily the best play. And it's crazy that we have as a top stack, I call it top stack percentage, the top overall play percentage on FanDuel, Davante Adams, a receiver. And we rarely are really getting excited about receivers. Still the top single projected player, at least the top scorer odds are slightly edging out Derrick Henry. And then he's actually significantly cheaper on FanDuel. He's $1,500 cheaper. That extra $1,500 can go a long way. So on both sites, I'm going, basically my decision has been made that I'll be playing Davante Adams over Derrick Henry because their ownership is similar. Their top percentage probability is not very similar. It is very heavily in favor of Davante Adams. My guess is on FanDuel, that's because although Henry scores a lot of touchdowns, so does Davante Adams, an insane amount of touchdowns, and his team is favored, so they should be scoring overall more. The pie should be bigger. So it's going to be Derrick Henry at captain. If Titans come in and pull off the upset, you can pretty much just count my lineups out.
Would you go with no side given Lazard or Tanyan? I'm leaning towards Lazard. I believe he's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, I'd go with Lazard. I'd go with Lazard. I just think generally outside of touchdowns, which obviously Tanyan has probably even more of a touchdown projection, but I think just overall in terms of volume, you're going to get as many targets in the same ballpark of targets, but they're going to be backed by a lot more air yards. That's just overall more upside. And we've seen Marquez Valdes-Scantling snaps go down in 5 consecutive weeks. Like, he's clearly just, whenever they have Lazard healthy, clearly the number 3 receiver. So I think both are actually fine. I'll have a decent amount of both, but 1v1, I'll still take Lazard.
All right, here's one. So I'm not really going to have time to set rules. If I was, it would be play two. Actually, I'm going to set that one for 2 of the kickers. And actually, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm only putting in 5% each for the defenses. So at most, I'll get a few lineups with 2, not very many with 3. I am going to utilize on DK Mercedes Lewis, Michael Pruitt, and Jeff Swaim a little bit heavier than anticipated. The main reason I'm doing that is this is how I'm reacting a little bit to the weather. I would rather go with one of those guys and upgrade dramatically one of my other position players than go with the kicker. So there is my one acquiescence. Is that a word? I will acquiesce on that one just for the pure savings that they're providing me. But that's it. I'm still going to try to get a ton of Davante Adams. I'm going to be over the field on him. I will be over the field on Corey Davis. We have him at 30. I'm going to go about 60%. Alan Lazard, we've got at 21. Let's put that at 40. MBS, no bueno. Let's put him at 40. Equanimous St. Brown, does he get a target tonight?
I'll say he gets a target. Yeah. Does he catch that target? I don't know. And does he get 2 or 3? I don't know. I would leave him in your player pool if you're playing large field tournaments. If you're just playing 100 mans, no real reason to get to him. You have to be playing a lot of 100 mans before you ever can think about getting, diverse exposure to him. I'd probably be running the same lineups in different 100 mans before I get to him. So I don't know. thousands of players that you're facing, sure, you could play him. Outside of that, I wouldn't really be too interested.
We're having AJ Dillon come in at 12. Maybe, here's another guy I'm willing to go a little bit higher on at the expense of the kickers.
Yeah, Dillon makes a certain amount of sense. Like, he could, it's interesting. I think it's possible that he goes out and sees just as many carries as Jamal Williams would have, if not more. It's like, say they commit to keeping Aaron Jones at a certain number of touches, which, like, coaches talk about literal touch counts all the time, which is weird to put some arbitrary number on it, given the different context of games. But, like, I know at the beginning of the season, whoever was the Falcons coach was like, we want to get Todd Gurley between 15 and 20 touches a game. I was like, wow, that is very specific when you don't even know how many times you're going to get to run the football a game, and you don't even know how good he is yet. And it turns out he was terrible. So I think coaches can be real nitpicky with that kind of, I'll say, dumb types of things. If they actually want Aaron Jones to play on no more than 2/3 of the snaps, they could use him as the only receiving back and still just at most half of the carries. And that's how AJ Dillon could get to 10 plus carries. I think that's a small percentage outcome. I think it is more likely that Aaron Jones runs wild as the 3-down back or something close to it. But I think it's possible that AJ Dillon goes out and actually plays a pretty meaningful role. That's why I don't have, I haven't ruled him out or anything, but I do think he's a player that a lot of people are going to go to just because of the savings.
All right. I am just manually making a bunch of lineups here because or by locking players, it's looking like just automatically I'm getting a good mix of 4-2s. Without doing this, I'm getting most of the player. Oh, I don't have any MVS. Let's make 5 lineups with MVS just to have fun. I am scrolling. 1, 2. This is awesome. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 8, 9, 10. 10 out of the 60 lineups I did are 3-3s. Everything else is 4-2 or 5-1, just automatically. That's the dichotomy, I think, of the pricing today that is having that happen on there. All right, so I dropped in those. We got to 200 likes. Thank you. 1,000 of you guys watching. Did Dillon projections spike? I think we have him at like 7 fantasy points DK scoring. That feels about right to me. He's going to need a touchdown to get double digits. Is that a better way of saying it?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems highly unlikely given how little they've used him as a whole. And then what we know about him as a pass catcher, which is that he literally doesn't do it. I think he had one college season with 300 carries and 6 catches. He just does, at least the history of how he's been used says that coaches refuse to throw him the football. So yeah, we have him at just over 6 points right now. And it's going to be very heavily skewed towards touchdowns being the way he hits his ceiling. I just don't see even if you took Samaje Perine's rushing touchdowns today, he would have had a good day for, if it was a showdown slate, he would have had a good day. I don't see that kind of thing happening where he actually goes out and splits the backfield 50-50. I think he's 7-8 carries at best. And if one of those is a goal line carry, then he's got a decent chance of cracking the optimal lineup. And that's about it.
In light of the weather, are you still good with Devontae Adams as your number 1 play? I'm not. It's not changing it for me, but I do want to ask that since I thought it was going to be cold and not snowy.
Yeah, I think you said it earlier. Sure, am I 5% more concerned about the weather than I was 3 days ago when I wasn't thinking about the weather of a Green Bay game? Yeah, sure. I'm modestly more concerned. Is it enough to shake me off of the best play by a considerable margin? No, it's not that much. And like I said, I think it's the biggest thing that gives me conviction is that we don't see this massive total drop from Vegas. It's a few points. It's still projected to be a really high scoring game. Nothing indicates that this is going to be some ugly, scrappy running game. I'm willing to take that risk and just keep rolling with what I think is and our projection show is the best play pretty easily.
Holy cow, you guys got to my games quick. All 10 are all taken already.
Selling some action.
Well, it's team free money. I'm giving it away. I'm giving it away like it's my job. All right, so there are my lineups. We got 5 minutes to go. I don't know. It's been kind of interesting, different approaches to lineup building. I do like talking through these, and I found that Some of our slates, I've changed up what I've done with the rules. This is just an incredibly top heavy one, so you can really control everything by what you're doing with your player percentage caps individually, and that enabled me to. I know I want the two running backs, and I want Davante Adams. By doing that and allocating so much of the salary cap from them, and setting with a two unique between each of the lineups, as well as going with capping some of the really cheap guys, just to get more diversity amongst the random tight ends and running backs, etc. It's made a very nice portfolio here of players. So I'm curious to see how this works out. A lot of times you want to set more restrictive rules. I know you guys had asked that. Generally, the rules I will set is no more than 2 of the combined kicker and defense pool. I usually will set, if I'm playing a captain quarterback, I do like what Fantasy Cruncher has created with their groups factor. Sometimes I will say must play 1. A lot of times I will say must play 1, but I'll goose everybody if the quarterback's the captain by 20 or 30%. So I have the opportunity of getting a couple more than I normally would. I like that rather than saying must play 2, actually. And then I like the ability that you can come in and decrease a player. We do this every now and then with some of the running back tandems on the 2-game slate, where we'll say, if this guy's the captain, I don't want the other guy, or I only want the other guy, but I'll bump his projections down 30% where I can get him, but I may not. Some would say whack the projections. Others would say bump them down. It's all about the choices of words. Emac, did you refuel my cash lineup yet? No, I did not, but since everybody grabbed my lineups, I will do that. My username is, wait for it, Emac, because I signed up at the beginning of DraftKings, and my username on FanDuel is also Emac, because those were not taken when you're one of the first people over to the site. My cash lineup is Davante Adams at captain, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Corey Davis, Anthony Ferkser, and A.J. Dillon. And that's what I set up last night when I wrote the article, and that's what I'm sticking with now. I'm foregoing the quarterbacks on these. I've got enough of them in my other areas that, to me, it just feels comfortable. Overall percentages, I have 80% Adams combined between captain and flex. I have 70% Henry. I've got 80% Jones. I've got 50% Davis. I do have 45% AJ Dillon. That was sort of where you watched me logicking through moving away from the kickers. And we'll see what happens. If this game was in a dome, I would probably have way less of those guys, and I'd be going for the kickers. And I'd be hoping for, the 2 field goals. It basically equals a touchdown, which is what we're hoping for from these other players, is somehow they get lucky with something. So just kind of the way we're doing it. 2 minutes to go. Colin, correct. Went 0 QB, so I'm losing all my money. Well, let's see how much I ended up with. Let's go with Rodgers. I have 45% overall Rodgers, but only 17% in captain. And then Tannehill, I have 13% total, 5% in captain. So not as overly excited by him. Not a function of the weather, just I think those other guys have more upside for them. Alan Lazard coming in at 30%. I did get 22% of Mason Crosby. I'm not overly thrilled about that, but I would be going. I went 25% for each where I selected it, but 25% for the kickers. Usually I go 35, so I bumped them down some. But we need savings with the way this player pool worked out. So it's just a fun puzzle that we go to every day. Or Tanyan at captain. Hey, good luck with you. I have one Equinemius St. Brown captain. Yeah. I could be playing with 3 points from my captain and then a ton from everybody else. We'll see what happens.
If you get a long touchdown from Equinemius St. Brown, that would unlock the slate, because then you really be playing everyone. I think it's not very often that we really see cheap captains. I mean, I like Equinemius St. Brown. I think would be like the first 200 captain to win like the big tournament in
Byron Pringle
years. Yeah, I don't think he was a captain though.
He may not have been.
I don't think he was the optimal captain. Typically, the lowest you get from an optimal captain is like the backup running back, and they're still typically priced for a few K. Like that is typically the lowest we ever see. I think like Duke Johnson last year as a backup crushed and was pretty cheap. Kareem Hunt as a backup wasn't even that cheap when it happened a few weeks ago, but it did let you get a lot of other players in. Yeah, it's not super often, and it's never like the 200 guys. It's like Latavius Murray probably came close a while ago. He had a good game, like a multi-touchdown game on an island. I don't hate those guys, but it is like it's a lot of like specifically these like backup running backs or someone like when Marquez Valdes-Scantling is cheap because we know he has 100 and a touchdown upside.
All right, we are at lock. Thank you, everybody. Hit that like button on the way out. Subscribe. We're marching towards 50,000. We do like that. We're starting this all over again tomorrow, 9 a.m. in the morning. You get the Monday Night Football Strategy Show with Dave Loughran. You know him better as Lofty D. You get Matt Gajeski, and of course, Alex Brown will be joining them, the former defensive end for the Chicago Bears, among other teams. Fun hearing his perspective. Then at 10, you're going to get the NBA Strategy Show that is going to be Jason Floyd and your favorite, Nerd Ask Greg. And then at 11, you're going to get Lofty, Josh, and Adam breaking down all the tournaments, seeing how that worked out on Sunday. I didn't do poorly. I didn't do great. It looks like I'm going to come within 1% plus or minus of winning or losing, which sucks, but it's better than losing. And then let's see, what else do we have? Oh, basketball. How can we forget basketball? The deep dive will be 5:30 to 6:30, live before lock, 6:30 to 7:30, special lock time tomorrow. And then NFL live before lock, me and Kyle coming back. We're going to do it 7:30 to 8:15. So there we are, folks. With that, you can follow Awesemo at Awesemo_COM. You can follow Kyle at Kyle Tweets here. And you can follow me at Emac DFS. With that, gamers, good luck. Rolling with the homies. Tell me you've at least seen the movie Clueless.